Urban legends, those spine-chilling tales whispered in hushed tones, shared around campfires and spread through generations. Stories that send a shiver down your spine and make you double-check the locks at night. We tell ourselves they're just myths, figments of imagination meant to scare the gullible. But what if they're not? What if the nightmares that haunt our sleep are rooted in reality? What if the monsters are real and they're closer than you think? Legend 1. The body under the bed. After a grueling day on the road, all you crave is a moment of rest. But as you step into your motel room, a rancid odor assaults your senses. A thick, nauseating stench that clings to the back of your throat. The couple exchanges uneasy glances, their faces contorting with disgust. They search for the source, checking the bathroom, sniffing the drains, even peering into the air vents, but find nothing. Frustrated and exhausted, they call the front desk. The receptionist's voice is indifferent, almost irritated. No other rooms are available, they insist. Housekeeping arrives, spraying cheap air freshener that only masks the odor momentarily before it returns, stronger and more putrid. Unable to bear it any longer, the couple decides to investigate further. The husband kneels down, lifting the edge of the mattress. His eyes widen in horror, and he stumbles back, a scream caught in his throat. Beneath the mattress lies a grotesque sight, a decomposing body, skin sloughing off, eyes vacant and staring into oblivion. The realization hits. You've been sleeping inches above a corpse. This isn't a macabre story crafted to scare travelers. In 2010, guests at a budget motel in Memphis, Tennessee, endured this exact nightmare. Complaints about a foul smell were dismissed until one brave soul uncovered the grisly truth. The next time you check into a room, will you dare to look beneath the bed? Legend 2. The Green Man. Legends speak of a spectral figure haunting these roads, a man with no face, his skin glowing with an eerie green luminescence. They call him Charlie No Face or the Green Man, a phantom said to terrify those who cross his path. Suddenly, the headlights illuminate a figure on the side of the road. His features are grotesque, eyes missing, nose absent, skin scarred and discolored. The driver gasps, heart pounding, as the figure turns towards the car. But the truth behind this legend is more tragic than terrifying. Raymond Robinson was an ordinary boy until a fateful day in 1919 when curiosity led him to climb an electrical pole to view a bird's nest. He touched a live wire carrying 11,000 volts. Surviving against all odds, Raymond became a recluse, venturing out only under the cover of darkness to avoid the horrified stares and cruel remarks of others. Interviews with locals recount encounters with Raymond. Some describe friendly exchanges, offering him cigarettes or beer during his nightly walks along Route 351. Others admit to tormenting him, throwing objects or shouting insults. The legend of the Green Man grew from ignorance and fear, transforming a disfigured man seeking solace into a monstrous apparition. In reality, Raymond Robinson lived a life of isolation, his only crime being the misfortune that befell him as a child. Legend 3. Cropsey. In Staten Island, parents warned their children about Cropsey, a deranged killer who lived in the ruins of Willowbrook, snatching kids who wandered too far into the woods. It was a tale designed to keep them safe, or so they thought. Archival footage of Willowbrook from the 1970s shows overcrowded halls, patients neglected and mistreated. But the legend took on a horrifying reality with the disappearance of several children. At the center of these cases was Andre Rand, a drifter with a sinister past, once an employee at Willowbrook. His presence near the crime scenes was no coincidence. Convicted of kidnapping and suspected in multiple murders, Rand embodied the very essence of the Cropsey legend. His connection to the abandoned asylum and the missing children blurred fiction and reality, seeding fear deep within the community. The monster parents warned their children about was real, lurking not in the shadows of imagination, but in the very streets they walked every day. Legend 4. The Toxic Lady. February 19, 1994, a night that would baffle medical professionals and send a wave of panic through Riverside General Hospital in California. As nurses begin to administer treatment, they notice something odd, a sheen on her skin and a garlicky odor emanating from her mouth. One by one, the medical staff begin to succumb. First, a nurse faints, then a doctor becomes nauseated and collapses. Chaos erupts as more staff are overcome by the mysterious fumes. Emergency protocols are activated. The ER is evacuated, and a hazardous materials team is called in. Despite their efforts, Gloria Ramirez is pronounced dead from kidney failure related to advanced cervical cancer. The incident leaves 23 hospital workers ill, 5 of whom require hospitalization. Investigations ensue, theories abound, from mass hysteria to exposure to toxic chemicals, but no definitive cause is found. Yet the case remains unsolved, shrouded in mystery and fear. The story of the toxic lady endures as a chilling reminder of how little we sometimes understand about the dangers lurking within our own bodies. Legend 5. The killer in the back seat. You pull into a rundown gas station, the kind that seems stuck in time, with peeling paint and a solitary, dimly lit pump. The attendant, a gaunt man with shifty eyes, approaches. As he swipes her card, he frowns. "Ma'am, there's a problem with your card. You'll need to come inside." Reluctantly, you step into the grimy office. The attendant locks the door behind you. Panic surges through you. Glancing back at your car, you see a shadowy figure sit up. This urban legend has been told countless times, but in 2013 it became someone's reality. In Houston, Texas, a woman narrowly escaped a carjacking when a gas station attendant noticed a man slipping into her back seat while she was inside paying. His quick thinking and her trust in a stranger saved her life. Criminals have used this tactic to prey on unsuspecting victims, turning a simple trip into a potential tragedy. Always lock your doors and stay vigilant, because sometimes the threat is closer than you think. Legend 6. The poisoned Halloween candy. Halloween, a night where the veil between the living and the dead is thinnest. A time for tricks, treats, and tales of terror. But for one family, the horror became all too real. An 8-year-old boy, Timothy O'Brien, eagerly sifts through his candy haul. His father watches as he selects a giant pixie stick. Moments after consuming the sweet powder, Timothy cries out in pain, vomiting violently. Within hours, he's dead. Investigations reveal the unthinkable. Timothy's own father, Ronald Clark O'Brien, laced the candy with cyanide to collect on a life insurance policy. Courtroom footage shows Ronald, dubbed the Candyman, maintaining his innocence even as evidence mounts. A calculating man willing to sacrifice his own child for financial gain. He even handed out poisoned candy to other children to cover his tracks, though fortunately, none of them consumed it. The impact of this atrocity led to nationwide paranoia, forever altering the innocence of Halloween. The real monster wore the mask of a loving father, reminding us that true evil often hides in plain sight. Legend 7. Alligators in the sewers. Tales of monstrous alligators lurking in the sewers of New York City have been dismissed as pure fiction, a tourist's tall tale. Historical accounts emerge. In the early 1900s, wealthy families vacationing in Florida would buy baby alligators as souvenirs, bringing them back to the city. These cute pets quickly became unmanageable, snapping at fingers and terrorizing households. In 1935, the legend became reality when sewer workers discovered a 7-foot alligator in a Harlem sewer. The beast was albino, likely due to the absence of sunlight, and had been surviving on rats and refuse. Legend 8. The vanishing hitchhiker. Compassion overcomes caution. You pull over and she approaches silently, her eyes distant and haunting. "Can you take me home?" she asks softly, providing an address before settling into the back seat. Her voice is barely above a whisper, and she offers little else. As you arrive at the address, you turn to speak, but the back seat is empty. Confusion turns to concern. You approach the house, knocking hesitantly. An elderly woman answers, her face etched with sorrow. Upon hearing your story, tears well in her eyes. "My daughter died in an accident on that road years ago," she says, showing you a faded photograph. "It's her, the hitchhiker you picked up." Accounts like this span cultures and decades, each with eerily similar details. In some stories, the hitchhiker leaves a garment behind, a shawl or jacket, later found draped over a gravestone. In others, they warn of impending danger before vanishing. Experts debate whether these are urban legends, manifestations of collective grief, or something more supernatural. Legend 9. The deadly spider eggs in bubblegum. The joy of a sweet treat is universal, a small pleasure in a chaotic world. But what happens when that delight turns into a nightmare? The boy unwraps the gum and pops it into his mouth. Moments later, he feels a sharp pain, followed by a strange tingling. He spits out the gum. Into his horror, tiny spiders scurry across his hand. While this sounds like a scene from a horror movie, there is a kernel of truth. In the 1990s, reports emerged of contaminated candy imported from unsanitary factories abroad. In one incident, bubblegum was found to contain insect parts and larvae due to poor hygiene and storage conditions. Health officials issued recalls and warnings, highlighting the dangers of consuming products from unregulated sources. Though no confirmed cases of spider eggs hatching in gum have been documented, the possibility of contaminated food products is very real, a silent threat hidden behind brightly colored wrappers. Legend 10. The caller inside the house. A familiar scenario. A young girl alone in a house, responsible for the safety of children not her own. "Hello," she answers. A raspy voice responds, "Have you checked the children?" Assuming it's a prank, she hangs up. But the calls persist, each more menacing than the last. Anxiety builds as shadows loom outside the windows. She calls the police, who agree to trace the next call. When it comes, the voice is chilling. Soon, the phone rings again. This time, it's the police. Their voices are urgent, panicked. "Get out now! The call is coming from inside the house!" This story has been told countless times, a staple of horror films and cautionary tales, but it's rooted in a true and tragic event. In 1950, Jeanette Chrisman, a 13-year-old babysitter in Missouri, was brutally murdered while the children slept upstairs. Evidence suggested she had been stalked and attacked by someone who knew she was alone. Her killer was never definitively identified, and her case remains unsolved. The horror of her fate has echoed through time, a grim reminder of the dangers that can lurk in the most innocent of situations. These stories aren't just figments of overactive imaginations or tools to frighten the naive. They're echoes of real events, real people, and real horrors that have left indelible marks on our collective consciousness. Thank you for joining us on this journey into the shadows, where truth and terror intertwine. If these tales have stirred something within you, then we've done our part.